Today's clean and simple tip, we're going to talk about wet sanding your hull to get rid of the oxidized gel coat and maybe a little bit of fading that you maybe had from some lettering. So let's take a look at what we need and how we're going to go about wet sanding the boat today.
Shurhold, clean and simple.
What do we need for the wet sanding project today? What are the basic items that we should have all prepared?
So the first thing you're going to need is sandpaper. So we've got a wide selection of sandpaper we're going to use today, and we're going to be doing that process called wet sanding. So you're going to need some water and some soap in there. The reason why we use some soap is it acts as a lifting agent.
How much soap are we putting in there?
Just a little bit.
Just a drop or two?
So we got our bright wash here. It's just a quality boat soap. You can use them just a 1 or 2 drops.
Okay, so any soap will work, but we're using our bright wash because we have it here. Now I see on the wet sanding discs, they're not normal sandpaper. These are ones that are meant for getting wet. They're actually plastic, not paper, so they won't degrade.
Exactly.
And what grades do you have here? Because I know they come in everything from very, very coarse to very, very fine. What are we working with today?
So every boat's going to be different, so you'll need to attack each project differently. For our Albury project boat, I think the best way to start would be with 1000 grit sandpaper.
Okay.
And that'll take out the etching from the salt and the years of abuse and a lot of the oxidation. And then we're going to clean it up with our second step, which will be 1500 grit sandpaper. And from there, we should be able to buff it to a final shine.
Now guys, when you're wet sanding or doing anything this aggressive on a boat, we always recommend starting light and going a lot heavier because it's hard to undo if you go the other way. The other thing I'm going to recommend is starting in an inconspicuous spot and testing it to get your project done. Now Sam's already done that before we started and figured out exactly the process we need for this project and for this boat, but your boat's going to be a little different depending on the age of the gel coat, the thickness of the gel coat, the manufacturer of the gel coat. It's a little bit of a trial and error, so you do want to take it slow and you do want to test the spot before you begin. This is the project that's working for us on this vessel, and the process is going to be the same for you, but the exact sandpaper grit you start with and how many steps will be dependent, again, on all of those variables. But you can never go wrong by starting light and working heavy. Never go heavy first, okay? So that covers the sandpaper.
Yep.
Which one of the Shurhold polishers, I see we've got all 3 of them here on the table, what are we going to use for the wet sanding?
We're going to use our lightest tool. This is our original dual action polisher.
Okay.
It's got a tight little oscillation, so it'll give us a lot of control when we're working on the vessel. We won't get out of hand, and we can work with these oscillating motions. What that's going to do is going to keep the temperature down on the gel coat, so we won't have any risk of burning or swirling, even with sandpaper.
Okay, and the other great thing about this tool, guys, is even though it's electric, it comes with a GFCI protector, and since we're going to be working with spray bottle of water and all that, we want to keep you guys safe. So do make sure that you're either using an air-powered tool or something that's got some electrical protection to it, like our Shurhold original dual action polisher. So the sanding discs, I see you've got some spacer plates.
Yep, these are adapters. We're going to use these to go from the backing plate that's a little bit harder, and so add a little bit of flex and be able to support these sandpaper discs.
The sandpaper discs, and all those are available either online or through a local fiberglass supply shop.
Of course, yes.
Not something that we make directly, but definitely easily available. So we've got our polisher, we've got our sanding discs, we've got our water. Last but not least is safety. What type of safety gear do we need when we're doing this?
This process is going to involve a lot of splatter, a lot of material coming off the boat and into your face and into your eyes. So if you look to your left, we have safety glasses and a breather mask.
Okay.
And that'll keep you, perfectly fine throughout the rest of this process. You won't be any damage or hurting yourself.
Okay, and then I see we got some gloves just to help keep ourselves clean as we're working along.
It can be a dirty process.
It can be a dirty
it's nice
process.
to stay a little bit cleaner.
So these are the things that you need to keep safe.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now that we got all of our safety gear on, let's talk about what we need to do to set up the tool and our first couple steps in getting started.
Sure. So obviously you'll need your dual action polisher. To set this up for wet sanding, we're going to grab one of our spacer backing plates, and you're going to center this on the backing plate. If it's not centered, it'll kind of move in an odd out of round, and you don't want that. You want to be as close to even as possible.
Okay, and which sandpaper are we going to start with?
We're going to start with 1000.
Okay.
It's our most aggressive sandpaper we're going to be using today, and so it's going to be cutting into the gel coat a pretty good amount.
And now I know there's the sanding side and the Velcro side, so obviously the Velcro side goes against the pad, the sanding side sticks out. So you do want to check and make sure that you're using the Velcro side against the disc and the sanding side against the vessel. Now, once we have this all set, I know you've got your water and soap. how much water and soap do we want to put on there, how much pressure do we need on the tool, and any type of pattern we need to use.
Sure. Well, this is wet sanding, so we're going to use quite a bit of water. The reason why is that acts as a lubricant between the pad and the gel coat. If you dry sand with this, it's going to create a lot of heat and you have a chance of burning the gel coat. With wet sanding, it's much safer. So go ahead and add quite a bit of water to the hull. Once that's done, we're going to check our speed setting, make sure it's at around a 4. I like to run it at this because it's not too fast, not too slow, it's still cutting a lot of gel coat off without, again, risk of burning or swirling. And I like to use just the pressure of the machine. If you're pressing in really hard, you're kind of working against the oscillating motion itself and slowing it down. You just want to let the weight of the machine and the pad do the work.
Okay, now before you begin, I just want to remind everybody, we are talking about wet sanding here, and everyone's boat's a little bit different. So the thickness of the gel coat that you have left, depending on how many times it's been done before, how much the manufacturer laid up, is something you're going to have to figure out and test on your own. So we do recommend you test in an inconspicuous spot, and you do start with a very, very fine grit paper, and you work your way heavier if the fine grit paper is not getting the oxidation out as you need. Now, as I stated earlier, Sam already figured out what we needed for this vessel on the other side. We're going to put on our safety gear, and he's going to get started, and we'll see how this turns out. The most important thing to remember when wet sanding with the dual action polisher is to keep the tool moving. The random orbit that the tool is designed to make provides the best finish when using the proper movement. Do not use a circular motion. We want you to work the tool in a 2-foot square area, moving forward and backward in an overlapping parallel linear motion across your work area. Once you've reached the end, repeat that pattern, except now in an up and down motion, using just the weight of the machine when you're on a horizontal surface, or a little bit of light pressure when you're on a vertical surface. Be sure to constantly lubricate the work area with your spray bottle of soap and water. This will help keep the pad from clogging too quickly and also help prevent burning. Make sure to replace your sanding pads regularly as they do become dull. Wet sand until the work area has an even dullness like a matte finish. Remember that you're removing dead, oxidized gel coat to reveal the fresh, preserved gel coat underneath. If the slurry from the work area gets too thick, rinse, check your progress, and continue as necessary. So by now, we have sanded the entire side of the boat, and you have a nice, even color that is dull. And that's okay because we've made it through the oxidation. The next step is going to be buffing it to bring out that shine, and that's our next video. And I'm going to drop the link to that below. And we're going to teach you how to use a rotary tool in that video with our Buff Magic compound and taking out those sanding scratches and bringing it back to a showroom shine. Until next time, I'm Barry Burhoff with Shurhold Industries, helping you keep your boat clean and simple. Come on, guys. Who left mud on my end screen? We got to keep this place clean around here. That's better.